Hi guys, Bobby Gas here. This here is a contest response for Steve Carlton. Uh, I like his channel. Steve's a fun guy. He does a lot of morning shows, which I'm a morning guy myself. But when I make the comments, he don't get all upset when I'm jibing him and stuff like that about looking like Joe College. That cat of his too. I think he might send it to me for VCLT. I'm gonna train it how to catch mice in it, and I'll send it back to him. Anyhow, he got rules. You know, he says, but he says it's a simple contest. All you got to do is pick 5 go-to albums, any 5 go-to albums that you got, but don't show any compilations. Now, you know, that's rules, right? If you don't show compilations and you got to show 5, or at least 5, no rules would be show anything. Just do a video and say, this is my entry. That's simple. No problems there. Well, you wouldn't have to show nothing, would you? Anyhow. Hi, Steve. Anyhow, my first album, they say when a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. My first album is a compilation. It's a Dutch pressing of the Stones' Rolled Gold album. I remember when my brother bought this down at Sam's Record, Sam the Record Man down on Yonge Street. Not this one here, the original, right? We went down together. He bought about $100 worth of albums, which surprised me, right? But it's super duper. It's got all of their early hits, right? Their great hits from the 60s. Love the Stones. That's a compilation. Not allowed. I'll do better than that. Here's a compilation, and it's not even albums. It's 4 CDs. Got all the great doo-wop on it. This thing here, man, it's super duper. Also for go-to albums, you know, this is actually a go-to album for me. Every time I want to diss an artist, Johnny Revolta, I go to this. Actually, one time on one of my previous channels, I took a hammer to this album, well, another copy of this album, and I was smashing it with the hammer. You know, and the hammer was actually going right through, and actually a piece of the album flew up in the air and bounced off of my desk here and landed. He didn't cut me, though. I destroyed him. This is a go-to album for me. I've gone to it many times to show how much I adore this doofus. Now for the real deal. This has always been a go-to album for me, ever since it come out. Electric Ladyland, Jimi Hendrix. It's just, it just sends me this thing. Some of the songs on this thing here, they really do put me on another planet, and still do. They take me back, eh? I remember the hippie days. You know, we had an apartment, you know, a bunch of hippies and stuff like that, right? And the records were going all the time. We had rented a stereo console for, I think it was cheap, like $3.40 a week or something like that. And one time where the hell's my album? I can't find it. All of a sudden the album was missing. Oh man, what a drag that was, right? I love this album, right? And I didn't find out till years later that my brother stole it. My little brother stole it and traded it for this album here. Astral Weeks, which happens to be a go-to album for me, right? I paid $30 for this, a repress, because I couldn't find an original copy. And then all of a sudden, Irish Benny brought me an original copy from Dr. Deadwax of Astral Weeks Go Together. I mean, some of the tunes on this thing here, Sweet Thing, even Astral Weeks. It's just a great album for me. A lot of people don't get this, though, which surprises the hell out of me. Now, here's go-to for me always was. When this album come out, I carried it around under my arm. In them days, everybody had a stereo or a phonograph, and I would, you're going to somebody's house, I would bring a record, or, this is the album years instead of the 45 years, and this was a record I always carried under my arm, and I would be going, the Stones are back, the Stones are back, great album. I mean, this is a fantastic album, Let It Bleed. And I mean, an iconic front cover. I mean, that is amazing. This is not. Also a go-to for me, and always has been ever since, is James Brown, Prisoner of Love. This is his early stuff, right? And stuff you never hear before. Of course, Prisoner of Love and Bewildered and Try Me are on this, of course. Beautiful ballads. I think he's one of the best ballad singers of the 50s and early singers myself. Of course, his voice is different. It's unique, right? And I like the unique voices. Roy Orbison, Patsy Cline. So that's all old stuff, of course, right? But there was a band that really turned me on to rock and roll. In the 80s, I started, late 70s, 80s, I started to go back in history for my music, looking at rock and roll and blues and, even country, right? I was going back instead of all that hair band stuff and a lot of that crazy metal, speed metal, goth metal, whatever the hell you call it. And I fell in love. These guys come out in '89, this album here, and I fell in love with this band. They actually, they're Tragically Hip, they're Canadian, and they actually renewed my faith in rock and roll. The Hip. Great band, great album. I mean, every song on this is a super, super song. There's no, would there be there's a couple here that I don't know. I wouldn't make my all-star list of 100,000, whatever, And for my last go-to record, I just picked this up recently, and I keep finding myself going back to it. It's Churchill album, Israeli band, psych band. 3-4 songs on it I really like, and I find myself going back and playing it, right? I do that with songs. And albums. I'll just keep playing and playing and playing and playing, right? It has to be my choice, though. I can't hear a song on the radio all the time, like Stairway to Heaven, something like that. And there's a number of other ones. They just turn me right off. Anyhow, Stevie baby, there's my contest response for you. I told you I'd throw in a compilation or two. Later, guys.